All right, session bassist Prime Bass is out, just got released this morning. I got a sneak peek at it and wanted to show you very quickly what this instrument is all about. What I'll do is I will compare this bass virtual instrument to another bass virtual instrument that many of you probably already have, comes with complete, and that is the Scarbee Pre-bass. This is the brand new Native Instruments one that's designed to use these patterns that we've come to see on things like session guitarist virtual instruments. So they've got the patterns, but then they've also got the multi-sampled round robin individual notes that you can play as well. So we'll sort of go head to head with some of those other bass virtual instruments you might have. The benefit of this one, of course, is the patterns and then also the sound of it. They're both modeled after the same American bass, which I won't mention the name of, but it's a very precise bass, if you know what I mean. So the thing I've noticed already just in looking at it is that it just has a different sound than, for example, the Scarbee bass. And that's neither a good nor a bad thing with these virtual instruments. You know, it's like somebody might like the sound of one over the other. So what I want to do is show them to you, but kind of make no judgments on it myself as we're looking at it quickly. It's something for you to decide. Is this a sound that's going to fit with the music that you do? Because ultimately that is what this is all about. And the thing I've noticed with this one right off the bat is that it's got a lot of the sort of fret noise chunkiness that you get with a real bass, which they sometimes get rid of with virtual instruments in a way to make it cleaner, but not necessarily as accurate, right? So we'll go through it, look at some of the patches, some of the patterns, and help you make a decision whether this is right for you. I do have an affiliate link in the description, so if you want to help me out, that's a great way to do it, but please don't buy this virtual instrument if it's not right for you. Make sure you watch this, check out some of the demos and the walkthroughs, and make sure that you're spending your money on the right thing. All right, so I've got it loaded up in Complete Control so that I get the light guide here on the Complete Control keyboard. And if we look over at the software, of course, we can see what these different key switches are doing. We've got the notes that go all the way down to a C, which is kind of interesting because if you wanted to get to a 5-string bass, you'd have to go all the way down to a B. So running inside Complete Control, you get all of your presets over here. And these presets are going to be the same thing that you would find if you were to click on the middle of the instrument, and you'll see the presets right there. Now, this one shows the melody and then the other one. And to find those when you're not using Complete Control, you would just use the browser to choose either the Prime Bass melody or the Prime Bass just regular. And so if you have the melody one loaded, all that means is you're going to get these 4 articulations at the bottom and then have 4 patterns. If, however, you choose just the Prime Bass one, you'll see that you get 8 slots for patterns. So this would be the way you'd want to choose it if you had no desire to play individual notes on the bass. So you were just going to use patterns, which is totally possible. And they've got some key switches that allow you to finish off the end of a pattern. So this is the way I would probably find myself working, because it allows you to use a few of the patterns and then also go in and just play the notes. So the patterns are great if you're not a keyboardist. And if you aren't a keyboardist, you still might want to draw in a few notes here and there as your song progresses. I'll just go through some of these presets so you can hear what some of these loops sound like. And when you are in the melody version of Prime Bass, you have to hold down the key switch that has the loops. And then if I let go, goes back to the root note or whatever you're holding, and it'll jump back to whatever melody position, these yellow key switches that you have in the bottom. So if I was on, say, the muted, and then I switch over to a pattern, and then let go, it goes back to the mute. Okay, we'll try 60s jam out. Pretty good. So you can hear it does have a little bit more of that fret sound that you actually get on a real bass. So there's the open bass, and go to muted. This flageolet or flageolet, that just means a harmonic. So you'll hear that a little bit better on the. And we've got the slap and the pop sound, which is just slapping the bass. So thumb usually slaps one of the lower strings, and then we get the pluck is the upper strings. So often you do octaves. Listen to Higher Ground by Red Hot Chili Peppers, or and let's go check out these patterns. So here's our first pattern. Oh yeah, that's pretty cool. So that's switching between some of the different loops, and then of course you can change the tempo of your project. These will change with the tempo. We can also click and drag this little bit of information right here, and then that is the pattern or the MIDI file. Let's try with maybe one of the more complex ones, like this one right here. Has that kind of riff in it. We'll drag that in, and sure enough, there is the actual MIDI notes. So that might be a good way to play if you really want to get precise and go in and change the timing, get the swing set exactly the way you want it. So that is extreme customizability to me with these loops. I'm really impressed that they've got this stuff in here. So obviously it's not a loop that somebody played. These are MIDI loops that they're sort of referencing, and then you get to go and manipulate those after the fact, which is much more powerful than just some loop that has rhythms in it. So already kind of digging how this works with the drag and drop. And by the way, the loops I'm using are from Drums on Demand. I know somebody's probably going to ask. I used to use Drums on Demand loops all the time in my music production stuff. Really great loops, and they're really old, but still sound great, and I load them up in Stylus. So another thing you can do with some of these, instead of having the phrase, let's have a look at this phrase right here. If I click this button, all it's going to do is play the exact same rhythm on one note. So what I could do is go to this slot right here. Doesn't seem to be like any option dragging, which would be really nice. But I can go and find my 188 loop. There it is right here, full funk, and load it up onto this next slot. And then on this one, I could turn off the phrase. So now I've got the exact same phrase loaded on two different key switches, one with the one pitch option and one with the full phrase. So if I go to C1 right here, so it means the patterns are going to work a little bit better in certain situations, especially when there's maybe notes in the pattern that don't fit the chord that you're playing it on. So up in the top, we've got our sound preset. So we've got direct signal patches, we've got amped patches, and then we've got the distorted patches and the crazy patches at the bottom. So it gives you the option to change the sound of any of these different presets. So you can load up something like disco bass here. And then, of course, we can go and change the preset to whatever we want. Rock ballad, or neo-funk. So that's how you change the actual preset of your bass. And then, of course, you can go in and change all of your settings, like the amps and stuff like that here, and create your own patch. But that's how you would go and change through the different sound presets. And you can save your own, of course, and every time you switch to something new, you're going to see new effects that are loading up in the amps and the effects down at the bottom. So make sure you're on the latest version of Kontakt as well, because we've got some new amps that just popped in, and those are part of this instrument. So you have to have the new version of Kontakt. Okay, so that's working with the effects. That's working with things like EQ. You can clear everything here. Ask you if you're really sure. Are you really sure? Yes, I'm really sure. Click on the Add button, and then you can see things like distortion, modulation, and then amps and cabinets. So aside from the patterns, and the patterns, like I just showed you a second ago, can be found through this little magnifying glass, and you can go, okay, let's try this pattern right here. So if I click similar, it's going to show me similar patterns that have a similar rhythm to whatever one you're selected on. So it helps you find patterns that maybe go with something you already have. You just need something with some kind of different variation of notes. So this shows you an overview of what your rhythm or the pattern looks like. So if I click on one, so there you can see the accented notes that are in this pattern. When I first saw this, I was hoping that you could go in and change that, but you can't. This is just kind of giving you an overview, and that's how they're finding ones that are similar. So of course you can go in here, you can say I want to just look for patterns that are played with fingers. Plek is the plectrum or the pick. That's the name for the pick in this software. Or you're playing slapping and popping with your thumb and your other fingers. And then over here we have a choice between a DI signal, 2 different mics on amplifiers. So let's try this neo-funk one out. Let's try this Mo bass patch out. Here in the performance we can change things like the swing. So here we can listen to this pattern. Let's take the swing all the way up. And then we can shift things a little late or a little early. We'll go a little bit more on time, and then we can humanize this and have this a little bit less precise. We've got vibrato on mod wheel. Now let's really quickly just go check out a difference between this one and this Scarbee Pre-bass, which I was talking about earlier. So here we're listening to the Mo bass patch, and every preset's going to have its own sound with the different amps and stuff like that. So comparing this to another pre-bass is a little tough because who knows what sort of presets they've got on it. But let's just go have a listen to the Scarbee Pre-bass so you can hear what the difference is there. So what I've got on here is the Scarbee Pre-bass Punchy preset. So I'm going to copy this information down. So there's the pre-bass, here's the prime bass. So let's try the prime bass with pick. Let's just listen to maybe the round robin stuff on these instruments. So I'm really hearing 2 samples right there. So that's the Scarbee, and then let's go over to the prime bass. I'm hearing more than 2 round robin samples being triggered there. Really nice bass patch. And then let's go back over to the pre-bass. Anyway, so that's the prime bass sound on this preset. So take that again with a grain of salt. It's like it's this prime bass with the Mo bass preset. It sounds a lot different if we go to other presets. So let's try another preset out. There's the deep slap funk. Hear that kind of rattly sound. That's a real thing that happens on basses. Like I have my jazz bass action set so low that I do get some of that rattle of the strings. And again, it's not a good thing or a bad thing, it's just a thing, you know? So do you like that sound? You're probably not going to get that on the Scarbee. Let's go. Right, so a little bit more clinical maybe on the other one. So hopefully that gives you some good tips, other information on this virtual instrument than you're going to find on the Native Instruments website, where they're going to be showing some great demos of it, how it sounds in a mix. This is more just like, what does it sound like in comparison to old virtual instruments, and is it going to be like a tremendous upgrade for me and the sound that I do or the sound that you do in your projects? So hit me up in the comments if you have any questions about it, and make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell, and we'll see you in the next video.